Before we break down the Vikings Eagles Thursday night football matchup, I got one question for all you Vikings fans. Are the Vikings a good football team? Give me a Y for yes or give me an N for no down below. Before we dive into some of my top takeaways following the Vikings' loss versus the Philadelphia Eagles, I just want to say thank you to all of you guys who joined us for our watch party last night. We had over 103,000 people join us, so seriously, shout out to all of you guys. We picked up over 750 new subscribers, so for all the real ones that are new to this channel, welcome and thank you guys so much. But let's dive into it. Coming up on today's show, we're going to be looking at the top takeaways from the Vikings-Eagles Thursday night matchup, where obviously the Vikings did end up falling short 34-28 in Philadelphia, where the Vikings, it's going to be my top takeaway here, they got absolutely dominated in the trenches on both sides of the ball. You know, the stat sheet looks good on the Viking side of things. You know, obviously Alexander Mattison couldn't get anything going. But hey, Kirk Cousins, Justin Jefferson, they absolutely tore up that Eagles secondary. I mean, Kirk went for over 350 yards. Jefferson went for over 150 once again. But man, on the Eagles side of things, that DeAndre Swift guy, he killed the Minnesota Vikings yesterday. 28 carries, 175 yards. That was really the story of the game, was how the Vikings just got absolutely outplayed in the trenches. We're going to dive into this in a little more in-depth in a second. But I do want to start off with the first, with the latest injury news around the Vikings, because obviously we had some, I guess, drama at the left tackle position. When the Vikings inactive list came out before the game yesterday, Christian Darrisaw was not on that list, but he did not actually end up playing against the Eagles. It was Oli Udoh who actually ended up leaving the game in the fourth quarter. He suffered a major knee injury. No real reports coming out what that specifically is. You know, hopefully, you know, it's not a torn ACL or anything like that. We don't want that to be going down for our man Oli Udoh, but he did suffer that major knee injury in the fourth quarter, which allowed David Quessenberry to step into that left tackle spot. But the big news last night, Christian Darrisaw, what happened here? He was active last night. He had the headset on, walking around on the sidelines, hyping his teammates up, which I love to see. But, you know, it was really the true definition of a game-time decision for Darrisaw. You know, came up to that final minute, and he just couldn't end up going, which I feel bad for him because obviously he grew up in Philly. He's got a ton of family there. He had over 18 family members at the game last night. So stinks for him that he couldn't end up going, and honestly hurt the Vikings a lot. This was Kevin O'Connell talking about the Christian Darrisaw injury right before kickoff. I thought this was a very interesting quote coming in from the head coach. He said, "It was past the 90-minute cutoff. We kind of went into it where he'd be a true game-time decision." And he went on to say, "Felt like with Quessenberry and Blake Brandel up, hopefully we'd be able to have really versatile guys behind those guys, with Oli obviously able to step in." He followed on to say, "Darrisaw just couldn't quite go. I don't know if there was an actual play in warmups or something that happened, but the hope was he would be able to go, and he just couldn't make it." And I'll tell you what, the Vikings needed him last night, because a clip that kind of went viral on Vikings Twitter was Oli Udoh getting absolutely ragdolled by Brandon Graham in the second quarter of that game. I'm not saying if Christian Darrisaw goes, the Vikings end up winning that game, because obviously they got dominated in the trenches, and the turnover issues, you know, were obviously a big reason for the loss, but it definitely would have helped this Vikings team if he was able to go out there. But let's dive into some of the top takeaways from the Vikings losing to the Eagles Thursday night football. Number one, I mean, this is the story all throughout Minnesota right now. The Eagles dominated the trenches, and they absolutely manhandled the Vikings all night long. I mean, these rushing stats, this looks like some Madden video game numbers for Philadelphia. They ran the ball 48 times. 48 handoffs for the Philadelphia Eagles last night, going over 259 yards, 5.4 yards per clip, had 3 touchdowns, a long run of 43. And on the Vikings side of things, just no production from the running game. Back-to-back weeks where the Vikings really struggled to establish the ground game. 9 carries, 28 yards, just over 3 yards per carry. And their longest run last night for the Vikings, 7 yards. That's just absolutely pathetic. And I want to get to this point. The Vikings are the true definition of a finesse team. I thought this dating back to last season when they were one of the worst defenses in the league and had still a ton of struggles on the interior of that offensive line. It's the same here. The Vikings got a ton of talent on the outsides. I mean, I could make an argument in terms of weapons in the NFL with the combination of Osborne, Addison, Jefferson, Hawkinson, and Josh Oliver. You can make an argument they got one of the best wide receiver tight end combinations in the entire league. But the Vikings, yet again, year after year after year, they struggle in the trenches. They struggle to get any sort of push on that offensive line or at that line of scrimmage. The Vikings are a finesse team, and I'm going to say it. They're a soft football team as well. Another big takeaway I had. Turnovers, and more turnovers. Listen, the Vikings are making history right now with some of the turnover, with the rate that they're turning this football over. And they have actually lost 6 fumbles this season. That is the most by any team in their first 2 games in the last 20 seasons of the NFL. Listen, you're not going to go into Philly and get a win when you turn the ball over 4 times. That's just not going to happen. And the turnovers just need to stop. Like, this is just not a good look for this football team. You're not going to beat any team in the NFL if you're turning the ball over 4 times. Vikings already have given away the football 7 times so far in the short NFL season. It's just bad, and the turnovers got to stop, because if they don't, this is going to be an incredibly long season for our Minnesota Vikings. And, man, it's just one of those things where, you know, they hope they don't happen, and they just keep on happening, like the Jefferson fumble, the Brandon Poe punt return, the Madison fumble. It was just an absolute disaster in the turnover department yesterday. I got more takeaways coming up here in a second, but I do want to give a huge shout-out to our new sponsor, Game Time. If you guys are trying to get any tickets to any sporting event, music show, comedy show, whatever it may be, use Game Time. And if you guys use the code VikingsChat, you guys are going to get $20 off your first purchase. Hey, the Los Angeles Chargers, Justin Herbert and the boys are coming to US Bank Stadium next week in a absolute must-win for the Minnesota Vikings. And if you guys are trying to go to that game, use Game Time to help you out. It's a super easy way. You can actually see where you're sitting during the actual event, which I love. A couple of us in the Chat Sports office went to the South Carolina, North Carolina college football game a couple weeks back, and we used Game Time. It helped us out a ton, and you guys should do that as well. Use that promo code right there, Vikings Chat, to get $20 off your first purchase. Say that one more time. Vikings Chat to get $20 off your first purchase. Make sure you guys get hooked up with Game Time today. Download Game Time, last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. I'll make sure to put that link for you guys in the comment section and the description of today's video. Go get hooked up with Game Time today. Number 3 for me and my top takeaways, Danielle Hunter. Let's go positive here, because obviously, you know, it's Negative Nancy Friday here on the channel. Everybody wants to be a little stormy rain cloud. Let's put some positivity out there in the world. Danielle Hunter, I thought he looked absolutely great last night. He ended up getting 3 sacks. He had 1 sack against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as well. But I like what the Vikings have been doing on these 3rd and long situations. Brian Flores, obviously, I think he's done a tremendous job so far with the Vikings. What he's doing with, you know, the lack of talent on this defense and them being able to actually hold their own a little bit, I think it's been an absolute masterclass by him. But him specifically, Danielle Hunter, I love what the Vikings do. They'll put like 7 or 8 guys on that line of scrimmage, drop everybody back except only rush 3 guys, and he really allowed Danielle Hunter to really kind of use his little dance a little bit, because we know he has the most unorthodox pass rush arsenal in the entire NFL, and it really got home to Jalen Hurts yesterday. He ended up getting 3 big-time sacks. Hey, it's good to have number 99 back, because after him, you know, having that torn pec, he had that neck surgery. You know, we never really thought that he would get back to his old self. Turns out he did. But I'll tell you what, Danielle Hunter was not the reason the Vikings lost this football game yesterday. I want to know your guys' thoughts. What was the biggest reason the Vikings lost the football game last night? I'm going to probably go turnovers. You could go trenches as well, but I'm going to go turnovers, because I do believe if the Vikings don't turn the ball over 4 times, and maybe it's only 1 or 2, I bet you they have a very good chance to win that game. Sticking with the positivity here with number 4, the Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson connection, I think is going underappreciated in the entire landscape of the NFL. When we talk about top quarterback wide receiver duos, I feel like we don't normally put Kirk and Jefferson on that list, and maybe that's just because of, you know, Kirk Cousins specifically. But Justin Jefferson is off to a historical start in this NFL season. He is on pace right now to go for 2,600 yards. 2,600 yards on the season for Jefferson. But so far, 20 receptions, 309 yards, 154.5 yards per game for number 18 in Minnesota. He has been great. He has been this whole engine for this Vikings offense, and he continues to do it game after game after game. Kick it to Kirk Cousins. The stats, they look pretty good. 72.7% completion percentage, 708 yards, 6 touchdowns. You'll take that. But it's that last stat. 4 turnovers, 3 fumbles lost, had an interception against the Buccaneers. Kirk's been having a tough time, taking care of this football. And back-to-back weeks, he's fumbled in Vikings territory with a strip sack. And that just gives the other team prime field position to go down and get 7, which both teams did. And I have this question. How long will this duo last? Very interesting here because Jefferson didn't get extended this offseason. I'm guessing they get that done. I sure hope they do at some point in time. But Kirk's on a 1-year deal. I think this is the last time we see, or the last season where we see Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson playing football together. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think one of those two, it's probably going to be Kirk. Won't be on this team next season. And who knows with Justin Jefferson's future. He might be looking around and saying, hey, if this team's not serious about winning, maybe I got to get out of here too. Number 5 for me, this isn't specific to the game. Where the hell is Lewis Cine? He has not played a single defensive snap so far in this season so far for the Minnesota Vikings. I think this is an incredibly concerning kind of outcome with all this, and this might be an all-time miss for GM Kwesi Adofo-Mensah. The Vikings had the 12th pick in that draft. They traded back to go get Lewis Cine with the 32nd overall pick with the Detroit Lions, and that whole draft class with him, Ed Ingram, Caleb Evans, Andrew Booth, I mean, it looks like one of the worst draft classes in recent Vikings memory, and it's kind of skewing my trust here a little bit with this front office. But I'll ask you guys, do you trust this Vikings front office? Second year with this new regime in here. Give me a T for trust or give me a D for don't if you guys have faith in Kwesi and the boys in the front office. I'll say this, it is getting tough to believe in this group. With the moves that the Vikings have made this offseason, they didn't address the interior of the offensive line once. They didn't spend a single draft pick, didn't make any free agency moves, and you literally have a dude like Dalton Risner out there on the market right now who is liking tweets about people saying he should come to Minnesota, and with how terrible the Vikings' interior offensive line after getting dominated by Vita Vea, and then after getting dominated last night by Fletcher Cox and the boys in Philly, it's just starting to get tough to believe in this group. It almost seems like they're trying to go for like this rebuild a little bit, but still trying to win games, and it's not really working out too well. I mean, hey, you get rid of Eric Kendricks, Patrick Peterson, a bunch of other dudes on this defense last season, don't really bring in too much talent. It's just starting to get a little concerning, and it's starting to get tough to believe in this front office. But again, thank you guys so much to everybody who joined our watch party last night. If you guys haven't already, make sure you subscribe. Lock us in as your go-to Minnesota Vikings YouTube channel. I really appreciate everybody who stuck with us this whole time. See you guys next time. Skol Vikes.